I have historically, and even more so recently, always been into vintage rifles, specifically for hunting and target shooting. I'm a big squirrel hunter, and so just vintage 22s specifically, I really enjoy. And so with that, one of the big appeals, or one of the big questions I should say, with a vintage 22 or vintage rifle is scoping them. So like, you get so much more utility out of having a small 4 or 6 power scope or a little variable scope on a vintage 22. And so today I wanted to talk about vintage optics for vintage guns, because I like to match scopes of the same vintage to whatever gun it is. And so I wanted to go over some vintage optics and kind of where you can find really good value as far as price to utility, and just some of the really good options. So we're going to be looking at 4X scopes today, and I have 4 sitting in front of me that I wanted to talk through, and then we're going to do a backyard clarity test, basically. Just simple test. This is not super scientific, but just a simple test with a clarity board that I've made. So let me flip around and we'll talk through some of these. Okay, so here are 4 scopes that we're going to be looking at today. And so this is varying levels of price, and we are going to kind of discuss each one. I'm not going to get super in-depth, but there'll be some materials linked that will further go into this. So first one, most premium, we've got the Leupold. Let me get my feet out of here because y'all don't want to see those. We've got the Leupold M8. I don't know if you can see the markings, it's a little dark. I'm sorry if you can't hear me because the cicadas are going crazy, but Leupold M8 4X. Obviously Leupold's still around, great brand, great warranty. So we'll do a clarity test with this. So that's going to be our most expensive option today. Then the next one we've got is the Lyman All-American Perma-Center 4X. This is a really cool scope. Lyman, unfortunately, is not in the scope business anymore, but they're still out there. So we'll look at this one real close. Then next on price range, we've got the Weaver. You're not going to be able to see this, I doubt it. We've got the Weaver K460C. So different iteration of the K4, but really great scope for the money. I have a B in there that we can talk about. And then lastly, we've got, this thing looks like a freaking monster because it's so much bigger. But we've got the, let me get it right, Tasco 4x40 nitrogen filled and coated. So this is, long story short, this is a Japan-made Tasco. And so varying levels of price. I'll look up and get the exact dollar amounts of what you can get these for, but let's go do the backyard test. See if I can get some video of looking through them so that we can discuss. Okay, so first we got the Leupold M8 at 25 yards. I don't know how well this is gonna focus, but we're gonna do our best. All right, next we've got the Lyman All-American Perma-Center 4X. Trying to hold the camera as steady as I can. Okay, so this is the Weaver K460C. And then we've got, lastly, the Tasco 4x40 Japan made. See if I can get this a little closer. Okay, so it gives you a rough idea of what they look like, kind of out in the sun. Let's move these into the shade. That was at 25 yards. So we're gonna jump closer to, we're gonna do 10 yards in the shade. I'm trying to get this done before it gets too hot out. We're gonna move this clarity board up to about 10 yards. And we'll do another session through them, starting with the Leupold, ending with the Tasco. Okay. Here's the Leupold M8 at 10 yards in summer shade. I'm freehanding this camera, so. Okay, here's the Lyman All-American, 10 yards in summer shade. Here's the Weaver K4 at 10 yards in summer shade. Okay, and lastly, here's the Tasco, Japan made. If I can get this thing to focus, goodness gracious. There we go. 10 yards summer shade. Okay, so we're back. So after looking through some of these scopes, I would love for y'all to comment which one you prefer based off of the videos. I haven't quite made up my mind. I really like the Lymans just because I think the history is cool and they're really clear, but just wanted to make a few clarifications and distinctions if you're looking to buy one of these in the future. All these are 1-inch tubes, so anything smaller than that is going to be a little bit on the dark side as far as visibility and clarity and all the fun stuff. So 1-inch tube is kind of where you want to focus, but the good thing about fixed power scopes like these is they're just super mechanically simple, and the benefit of vintage optics is you can take them apart and you can clean them and you can service them. And with the ones like the Weaver, like there are just tons of parts floating around on eBay and secondary markets, so you can pick up broken or damaged scopes and have parts for your scope that you can use to replace or service if anything gets torn up. Now, a lot of people are probably going to say, well, why would I buy a Weaver for $100 when I can go buy a Vortex for $150 and have a lifetime warranty and all those things? The coatings are going to be better. That's a fact. Like, technology has come a long way, but the benefit that you get with a vintage optic is, one, they're super mechanically simple. Like, they last forever. That's why this Weaver is 60 years old and it's still as clear as the video shows. The other thing is, if you have a vintage gun, I personally want to match the aesthetic of the rifle. I think that's really fun to do, and it makes collecting and buying and makes the hobby a little bit more interesting in me. I really love history, so that's kind of why I do that. And there's not any companies, and if there is, there's very few that make scopes that have a finish that will match a vintage rifle. Like, there's not really any blued scopes floating around, or like the Leupold, the glossy scopes, like those don't really exist anymore. You have to go vintage for something like that. So that's a big pro. Everything else today is anodized and tactical looking, and to me, it doesn't feel right on a vintage gun. And then lastly, which we kind of saw in there, like the Lyman has a post reticle, the Weaver has a super fine wire crosshair. You don't get a lot of these simple reticles that, if you're just wanting to hunt or just do super basic plinking, like those are perfect to me compared to like the new modern Christmas tree reticles. Like, I don't want all that stuff in my scope. I just want a simple crosshair that is easy to understand. And so that's one reason why I really like these vintage optics. But just wanted to kind of shine a light on the value proposition of vintage scopes and kind of what each one looks like. I don't know if I already said it or not, but basically, regardless of which one you choose, every one that we looked through today is usable. Like, you can hunt, you can plink with it, no problem. But your cost basis on an optic compared to today is so low. Like, you can get these Japan-made Tascos that are great optics for $50 or a little bit more still, and that's awesome. Like, if you're just wanting to get out there and you don't have a ton of money to throw at gear, it is a great option that's going to serve you a really, really long time. And if it breaks with a Tasco, it's not like a Weaver, this one isn't at least, where you can take it apart. But if a $50 Tasco breaks, you can go buy another one. And I highly doubt that it's going to break. But just wanted to cover some of these 4X optics and why you would look into a vintage fixed power. I love them. I have been kind of collecting them here recently, and I actually have been selling them on eBay. And I've been kind of documenting them because there's not a lot of written information on them, even though they're super cool and they still get the job done. And so I'll link, Ozark Provisions is the name of the business. I'll link all that in the footnotes, but just wanted to kind of showcase what is out there versus just going and buying a new optic. Like, there's a lot of value to be had in some of this older gear that still works great. So with that being said, thanks for joining. We'll see you soon.